the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
My guest today joining me is Dr. Jennifer Roback Morse, the president of the Ruth Institute, author of The Sexual State. So much could be said of her and her work. Among many other things, Ivy League educated, has taught in Ivy League schools. She is really on the front line. Although trained as an economist, she has really taken her incredible work of research and eloquently brought together and packaged data and information in strong, faith-filled, family-filled arguments on some of our greatest challenges today. And today we're diving into same-sex attraction and gender. We'll be touching on news coming out of the Supreme Court as we anticipate a ruling later on in the spring in June over so-called conversion therapy. But starting out with same-sex attraction, it seems as if once gender became a thing, we don't discuss the reality that many people experience same-sex attraction that is within this whole gender dysphoria crisis today. And we have the responsibility to tell people the truth about who and what we are as human beings. And goodness, I think it was close to 8 years ago now, there was another study done. I say another study done, confirming and affirming that no person is born gay. Yet that's still an argument that's being made today, I think much to the surprise of some who know the research. And that's why Dr. Jennifer Roback Morse is joining us here today to set the facts, the science, and a faith-based anthropology that confirms and affirms all of that together on the topic of being born gay. Dr. Morse, I'm so glad that you're here with us because I find this is one point of contention that either a lot of people don't know that, one, you're not born gay, or two, they're not willing to say because of the heated emotional atmosphere, personal relationships surrounding conversations, friends, people we know who may experience same-sex attraction. So I'd love for you to just start with addressing a lot of the research you've done at the research, continuing to show and drive home the point that a person is not born gay, and countless studies have shown this.
Timmerie, thank you so much for having me on to discuss this really important topic. I was pleased to hear you mention the study from 2019, which was a complete study of the human genome, and it became very clear, and the study's authors made it very clear, there is no gay gene. There isn't even a confluence of gay genes. And so the idea that same-sex attraction is the new black, you may have heard this phrase, gay is the new black, or you may have heard people say, being gay is like being left-handed. Being gay is like having blue eyes. Things that you literally cannot change, things that are immutable, inborn traits, as the courts would say. And that is simply not true. And we now know that it's not true. Gay is nothing like black, okay? And so we have evidence from the human genome showing that this is the case. And we also have, by now, quite a few studies of identical twins. And so let's think about that. Identical twins, yes. If it were true that people were born gay, then in a pair of identical twins, if one twin is gay, the other twin should also be gay. And of course, it's nothing like that. It's closer to 30%, all right? So the claim, the science behind the claim that people are born gay, that science is completely evaporated. And when you stop and think about what being gay actually entails, it starts to become clear why it's evaporated, because gay isn't one thing. I mean, I think people have the idea that a person is born with a preloaded sexual arousal template, and some people are aroused only by people of the opposite sex, and some people are aroused only by people of the same sex. And that's simply not the way sexual arousal templates develop, and the things that we associate with being gay, even the people who try to study it will tell you, and there are a lot of serious people studying it, not all Catholic, just a lot of serious science people. They'll ask 3 questions. They'll ask about behavior, they'll ask about thoughts and feelings, and then they'll ask self-identification. Do you describe yourself? How do you describe yourself? Okay. And so what you find is that those 3 measures of what it might mean to be gay do not perfectly overlap in everybody. So there's a lot of reason to doubt this very strong claim that people are born gay and therefore you can't expect them to change their behavior or to be anything but gay, and therefore therapy is ridiculous, therapy is harmful. That's the conclusion people are drawing. And that is not a valid conclusion to draw based on the evidence that we have.
And people don't realize, Dr. Morse, that this was published in 2019 in the Journal of Science. It's been widely discussed, but underreported on or truly addressed as this is de facto. Like, this isn't faith saying, hey, there's no such thing as gay. This isn't me saying, hey, I don't like the idea of being gay. I don't like the behavior. No, this is, as you said earlier, the human genome has been studied. We've also had decades of identical twin studies pointing to the same reality, that if you have identical twins and one presents as gay and one doesn't, that yet again proves this isn't in the genes. And so when you bring this up, I think that the boldness that needs to come is us actually being able to stand firmly on that understanding when we're navigating relationships with people we know and love, or when we're debating and working on this issue from a cultural perspective.
Yes, and one of the things that has developed in the last, I don't know when this all started, but there's a worldwide movement to attempt to ban therapy that would help people to change their sexual orientation. And now people are also adding to that, banning therapy to help people change their gender identity. Okay, and the claim, or the argument behind these bans, and I just want people to pause and think for a moment. What you're talking about is regulating the speech that takes place inside a therapist's office. That's what you're talking about regulating. You're telling therapists who hang out their shingle and say, anybody can come to me who wants my help and I'll try to help them. Nobody has to stay with any particular therapist. If it doesn't meet your needs, you can leave. And we're going to talk privately about whatever you want to talk about in this context. And by the way, I specialize in certain kinds of things and certain kinds of problems. And yeah, I'll try to help you with your problem if it matches what I do. That's what they're trying to regulate. And it's pretty clear that what the activists are doing here is to scare the therapists away from having a conversation about, why do you feel persistent same-sex attraction?
Mm-hmm.
What's behind that? What is it meaning to your life? Is this something that aligns with your other values? And if so, which values are the most important to you? All of that line of conversation, they want to shut off because they want to say, nobody can change their sexual orientation, just like nobody can change their eye color. And trying to change a person's sexual orientation will be harmful to them, full stop. And we now have enough evidence to know that that is also not true. Okay, so number one, people change. It happens all the time, Timmerie. We can talk about the data on that in a minute. But also, we've now increasingly got better and better studies of the results of therapy that tries to help people address these kinds of issues in their lives. And you're not finding that this increases suicide or that it never works and all these type of very extreme claims that the activists make about what they have labeled conversion therapy.
And I just find it so ironic, Dr. Morse, in a culture that is so focused on become the better version of yourself, the top 5 things to be happier, the top 5 things to change your behavior, how to become indistractable, all of these self-help books and self-help books that are in the secular world. It seems as if we believe that truly we can change and hack anything about the human person. I mean, all the way down to our DNA and how we're programming cells, to the way our bodies work and what we're throwing and pummeling in our bodies to make changes with them. I mean, there's so much to be said of that, but the only area you can't change and you can't control yourself has to do with your sexuality. That's the only area that we claim that. And it's kind of astounding, especially from a anthropological perspective, because I think the only true human anthropology to have is one that centers on the fact that we have a creator. It's very reasonable, and that indicates that there's a purpose for the body. And we look at that biblical anthropology and we know we have intellect and free will. This could be understood from natural law, not just from a faith-filled perspective. And this is what gives us the capacity to love. That means we can come to know something and freely choose it and therefore love it, which means we can actually direct our actions in all areas, including human sexuality.
Well, you're certainly correct that what's at issue at the bottom of all of this is a view of 2 different views of human nature. What does it mean to be human? what will make us really happy? Who are we? Where are we going? All of those issues are in play in these debates over human sexuality, and particularly on the issues that have to do with gender and sexuality, whether it's what you could call gay pride or what people have called transgenderism, or even if you go back a little further, what people call feminism. Okay. And I don't like any of those words. I don't even like the word feminism, Timmerie, because so many people use it to mean so many different things. But we all know, whatever label you want to put on it, that there are ideas and ideologies afoot that tell women what they're supposed to be, what's supposed to make them happy, what we're supposed to aspire to, and so on. And those ideas are wildly at odds with a view that is grounded in our bodies as women, our bodies as being receptive, our bodies as being life givers, nurturers, and relational, fundamentally relational. And we've been told that we're supposed to be independent and autonomous and take care of ourselves and so on and so forth. And that turns out to not make people happy, because we love our babies, we want our babies, we love our husbands, we want our husbands to take care of us. We don't want to be married to some squish. We want to be married to a guy who can take care of us and protect and provide for us, make us feel safe so that we can do what we want and need to do. I know that you're a working woman and a mom, and you have the space within your family to care for your family and be bold and step out of the family from time to time. Same with me. If I didn't have my husband backing me up, there'd be no Ruth Institute. I can tell you that right now. So the confusion about the sex of the body goes back a long way. And the confusions that we have over homosexuality, it didn't spring up out of nowhere. They're part of a larger package of people in our society who do not want to face up to the reality that we're male and female, and that male and female matters in all kinds of ways, And so that's the deepest issue. That's the deepest way in which we could look at it. But at a more practical level, the things that your listeners may care about more immediately is that, and you and I were at a conference this past weekend. We were in a room full of 1,500 young people between the ages of 14 and 30, I think, was probably the boundaries of these kids' age. And I said to them, look, I want you to understand, in a room this size, 1,500 young adults, there are people in this room, male and female alike, who are struggling with same-sex attraction. I want you to know today that what you're feeling now, the struggles you're having now, the questions you're having now, that this is not the final word about your identity. There are many dimensions in which you can change, and you very likely will change over time. So that's my message to people driving around, listening to the show in their car, taking their kids home from school or whatever. This is not the final word. It's not the final word about your loved ones,
right?
If that's part of your life.
And I'll just say, because I was there listening, I was watching the reaction of the many youth that were there that day, and that message, you saying that, what you're suffering, what you're experiencing, what tendency, whatever it is that's going on. And the likelihood is that some of you are struggling with gender dysphoria or same-sex attraction. That resonated with them. And I so appreciate that you said that, because I think people feel so isolated, even if they're in a Catholic pro-life type of arena, such as they were that day. And I even just look at my own upbringing, even if you're not within that context of, young, emerging pro-life, pro-family leaders. But in my upbringing, I could say the 4 closest friends to me when I was 13, 2 out of 4 of those identify as gay today. And so it just goes to show, it's so common. More common sometimes than we realize. Grant, I was in the dancer world too, so that's, I think, a little bit closer to it than others might be. But that befriending and that friendship, sometimes, God just allows people to go in different directions, and we did earlier in high school. But I look back at that and I see that, and I see how desperately those friendships and those relationships, like someone has to be that friend who stays there. And I think that this generation of youth, specifically Gen Z, they really struggle with friendship. They've actually made it clear that that's what they want to see depicted on the big screen. We want to see friendship depicted on the big screen. And where they struggle, Dr. Morse, I was talking to you about this earlier off air, is they struggle to figure out what love is. They think that they have to approve something in order to show love and familiarity and friendship to someone. Like what you just heard? Share it with your family and friends. And thanks for listening.